With us, an Israeli report released this Tuesday says Hamas used sexual violence as a tactical weapon of war in its October the 7th, 2023 attacks, building on other investigations by international and Israeli rights groups and the United Nations. Here at France 24, this from Emerald Maxwell.
The Dina report builds on several others by international and Israeli rights groups and concludes that Hamas used sexual violence as a tactical weapon of war motivated by genocidal intent during its October 7th attacks on Israel. The legal team's goal is to pursue justice for its victims.
We carry here a universal message that sexual violence cannot be accepted as a tool of war.
Victims like Ilana Pritziuski, who was kidnapped from her home on kibbutz Nir Oz and held hostage for 55 days in Gaza.
I remember guns were pointed at me. I remember hands which did not belong to me touching me. I remember I yelled and then blacked out. When I woke up, I was half naked, surrounded by terrorists. They were beating me, they were touching me. I don't know what happened to my body during those lost minutes, but my soul already knew. Nothing will ever be the same.
The report said witness accounts indicated at least 15 separate cases of sexual assault, with verbal and physical harassment and threats of forced marriage, as well as evidence of gang rape, followed by killing, genital mutilation, and public humiliation.
We formed an evidentiary framework that proves that Hamas used sexual violence in a systematic manner as a weapon of war.
The report calls for wartime sexual violence to be treated differently from regular sex crimes because it said Hamas had silenced most of its victims by killing them. It also said joint criminal responsibility should be applied to all participants in the attack, rather than trying to link individual perpetrators to specific victims. This, it said, would create a pathway to justice for victims of the October 7th attack and potentially for those in other conflict zones. Hamas has denied its forces committed sexual violence against women, but a UN mission concluded last year that there were reasonable grounds to believe that conflict-related sexual violence occurred on October 7th.
I was really scared.
Emerald Maxwell with that report. Let's bring in Noga Tarnopolsky. Noga, of course, is our correspondent in Jerusalem. Noga, thanks for joining us. This is an absolutely harrowing report about the sexual violence used by Hamas. It is shocking. We had some idea of things that had happened, but when it's spelled out the way this has just been done so, it is just incredibly moving and incredibly shocking. Give us a sense of how this has been received where you are. What has the reaction been?
The reaction has been, I would say, one of quiet shock, and it reflects something mentioned and underscored in this report, which is that sexual violence, systematic sexual violence as an act of war, enjoys the cover of silence. First of all, because many, if not most of its victims are killed. And secondly, because it's something so difficult to express and speak about. In fact, the clip that you showed of former hostage Ilana Grashevsky, in that clip, she describes the experience of simply blacking out as she is sexually assaulted and awaking half naked, not knowing and never really knowing fully what happened to her. Today, coincidentally, in the Knesset, Keith Siegel, a male former hostage, described witnessing an act of violence against a female hostage while he was held in Gaza by Hamas. So what we're seeing is a preponderance of evidence that describes crimes and at the same time describes almost the impossibility of expressing those crimes. One interesting aspect of this report that was made by a very prestigious group of female professionals, including a former judge advocate general of the Israeli army, former deputy attorney general of the country, is that they're trying to lay down a universal template that can be used in other countries, in other situations, to prepare the ground for legal redress in cases of mass sexual abuse as part of an act of war.